To be clearly understood whenever you speak Spanish, it's very important that you are aware of accents. And now by accents, I don't mean how a person speaks. For example, someone from the north of England will speak with a very different accent as opposed to someone who's from down south, say in London. So I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is where you place the stress in a word. For example, here we have a key for here, right? Now, if I place the stress over the A, I would get aquí. And if I place the stress over the I, it would be aquí. So here we have two very different sounds, one aquí and the other aquí. So where you place that stress in a word in Spanish really matters. And it's often the difference between being understood and getting that classic blank look where you can tell that they really don't have a clue what you just said. Fortunately, in Spanish, there is a default setting for where the stress normally comes. So it normally comes on the syllable before last. So as some examples, let's break down some words into the syllables. For example, we have hablo, which is I speak. And here we're dealing with two syllables. We have a and blo. So the default rule is that your stress always comes on the syllable before last. So here we have just two syllables, so we get hablo. Down, I stressed on the first one, hablo. If I said hablo, that would mean something entirely different, would be understood in a different way. So the same thing would be with canto. I sing. Here we have again two syllables, canto, canto. So now I'm saying I sing. If we take, say, recibo, now we have three syllables because we have re, si, bo. So again, I stress the syllable before last, which is going to be this one. So it will be recibo. That's where I stress down. Now you don't have to extend it that long. I'm just exaggerating to make it clear for you. For example, I wouldn't say recibo because then I would be stressing the end of the word and that would actually mean something entirely different in Spanish. So here I have recibo, and that will be understood as I receive. Libro is another word, again with two syllables. So I'm saying libro, that's where my stress is coming just before last. Even on, say, importante. So here we have a word with four syllables. We have importante. So our stress comes on the one before last. It's going to be over here. Importante, importante. That's where I'm stressing the word. If I said importante, it would sound weird, or importante. Now I'm placing the stress here. It doesn't sound right either. Importante, it would sound weird, right? So the default setting is that your stress comes on the syllable before last. Importante. Let's look at this word. We have urgente. So we have three syllables again. Urgente. So your stress comes on the syllable before last. Urgente. Urgente. And we have another one here. Posible. Three syllables. Posible. So this is the syllable before last here. So we have posible. Now, whenever a word in Spanish breaks that rule, they actually tell you. And this is not true for all languages. For example, in Italian, they don't. So unless you've actually heard the word, a lot of the times you can't be exactly sure how they pronounce it, you're just guessing. But in Spanish, they do actually indicate it very clearly. Now, we already had a look at a key. So here normally, just looking at this word, I would say aquí, because I have two syllables, aquí, and the default setting is that I stress the syllable before last. So I would say aquí. But that's not how the word is pronounced in Spanish. It's aquí. And to indicate that this word has broken the rule, you can see that they've put an accent over the I, telling you that you need to stress the ending of the word. So this word is breaking the default rule. So now we have aquí. Another example word would be Mexico. Now we have three syllables here. We have Mexico. That would be the Spanish pronunciation of it, right? So three syllables, Mexico. So if I was to obey the default rule, I would stress this middle one here. It would be Mexico, right? Because I have Mexico, and I would stress the one before last, Mexico. But that would not really be understood, right? It would sound strange because actually it's Mexico. And to tell you that this word has, again, broken that default setting, they put the accent over the E to tell you that you need to stress that syllable and not the one before last. So seeing the word written like this, it would be Mexico. But with the accent, the correct pronunciation becomes Mexico. Now I'm stressing the front of the word Mexico. Here's a little word that we've been using since the very beginning of the course for like this, like that, this way, that way. Now here, it's written without the accent. So, obeying the default rule, I would pronounce this as asi, asi, because I only have 2 syllables to work with, and I'm stressing the one before last, so it'll be asi. But actually, the correct pronunciation is asi. And to indicate that this word breaks the rule, again, we have the accent over the I. So asi, it's like this, like that, this way, that way. So this is why paying attention to accents is so important in Spanish, because they're telling you how to pronounce the word correctly. Let's have a look at this word. So we have información. Let's count the syllables. We have información. So 4 syllables. Now normally the default rule is that we stress the one before last. So it would be información, right? We would stress this one, syllable number 3. Información. But this word does not obey that default setting. And that is why in the written language, you'll see the accent over the O, because it's telling you now that this word breaks the rules. It's not the default setting, and you stress the last syllable, the ending. So we have información. Now, saying información will be immediately understood. However, if you said información or información, you probably would not be understood because it would sound so strange to their ears. Now, there is a special exception to this rule, and that happens when we're dealing with the full verb, the infinitive, such as recibir or hablar or comer, the full verb where you have the R at the end to indicate that it's to eat, to talk, to receive, to whatever. And here we do stress the ending of the word in the full verbs. So we have comer, hablar, recibir, all the things that you're used to already. Let's quickly review all this now. So the first thing to realize is that there is a default setting in Spanish where you stress the words, and that normally happens on the syllable before last. So if you have a word with 2 syllables, you're going to stress that first syllable because it's still the syllable before last. Or if you had, say, more than that, 3 syllables, it would be the second syllable that you stress, or 4 syllables in the word, it would be the third syllable that you stress that part of the word. Next, if a word breaks that rule, what's going to happen is that you'll get an accent to tell you that in the written language. And we saw plenty of examples with that, like aquí and Mexico and así. Información, they're telling you that that particular word breaks the rule, and they will tell you in the written language the syllable where now you should stress in order to pronounce it properly. Now, the third thing to remember is that full verbs, that's like to whatever, to eat, to run, to walk, those are the ones ending in R, they don't obey the rule and they don't have an accent over them either. So you get comer, hablar, you are stressing the end of the word when it comes to full verbs. But you don't really have to pay too much attention to that because we're already so used to using and pronouncing these verbs that I'm sure you're doing it correctly already without even having to think about it.